Hey, what's going on with shipping? Sal Mercogliano here. We're getting reports of a fire on board one of the NOAA survey ships, in this case, the Ronald H. Brown. Now, the ship is back in port in Pascagoula, Mississippi. She just arrived not too long ago. Reports are main engine room fire, no injuries on board. However, the vessel did lose propulsion and systems and was either towed or assisted back into port after the fire. We're going to go ahead and break this down for you and relay to you the information that I have and the information that I can release to you from a variety of different sources. So here is track of Ronald H. Brown. The ship left Gulfport here right around 11 October at about 1400 hours UTC time. Now, Ron H. Brown is an oceanographic vessel, 274 feet long, speed of about 11 knots, can cruise for about 11,000 miles with an endurance of 60 days. Her commanding officer is Captain Sarah Duncan, homeported out in Charleston, South Carolina. For those of you who know, the NOAA Corps has a officer corps, both licensed and deck and engineering officers, but they are a uniform service in the U.S. Through NOAA. Kind of interesting that the ship is sailing and going out on a mission during the government shutdown. Now, Ronald H. Brown, built back in 1997 over in Halter Marine at Moss Point, Mississippi, one of the largest ships in the NOAA fleet. She conducts operations for their Office of Oceanic, Atmospheric, and Research, has a plethora of laboratories on board. Plus, you can add mission vans, additional space. She's equipped with multi-beam echo sounders, acoustic Doppler current profilers, acoustic positioning systems, and a Doppler radar. Plus, she has a very unique dynamic positioning system that allows her to hold her position into seas up to 11 feet, wind speeds of 27 knots, and about a 2-knot current. I'm going to go and show you. So here's Ronald H. Brown outboard. She's right here off the head of the passes of the Mississippi River. Time frame we're looking at here, sorry, I'm going to have to do a little Ron Brown here for you, is right around 12 October, right around midnight on 12 October, and that is when she comes to a stop. Let's go ahead and zoom in here. So here she is, turning about 11 knots, heading on a course of about 191. And here is where she comes off power and then goes completely off and begins to drift. So right here, right around 03:55 on 12 October, so right around midnight, 11 to 12 October, is when she begins to lose power. Reports are fire in the main engine space. Now, this ship does have a kind of mix of propulsion systems on board. She's got three 1,500 kW diesel generators and two 3,000 horsepower Z drives, so azimuth drives. So those are the ones that give you 360 degrees azimuth propulsion. So, and what you have is basically a pure kind of diesel electric. So you'll see her drifting here. Now she's actually going to anchor, going to switch over here to our nautical chart. She is showing now at anchor. So she's anchored in about 150 meters of water. So that is enough to basically hold her in position. You'll see some vessels steaming past her, but nobody coming to immediate assistance. So that tells me that the ship did not call out at least a distress call for assistance. But right now, the crew would be assessing really the situation on board the vessel, making sure that there's no extension of the fire. Fire is not extended. A main engine space fire is one of the most dangerous. Any heat in that space could damage fuel lines, could basically compromise any sort of oil or fuel. You really don't want to restart engines in an engine space that has suffered a fire without inspecting anything for fear of getting a fuel leak. Zoomed in here a bit. So here is Ronald Brown coming in. She is obviously drifting at this moment, and she lets go her anchor right about here. So we're looking at roughly around 0800 UTC on 12 October. So about a 5-hour difference, I think it is, for being in that area off Louisiana. So probably looking right here around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning on 12 October. And the vessel is going to hold its position here. So 01:45, 13 October, so late on the evening of 12 October, in comes the tug Crosby Star. Now, Crosby Star was coming from around the other side of the head of the passes here and made a rendezvous now with the Ron Brown in this position. So Crosby Star, big tug, can do the tow here and pull Ron Brown out of the area and up into where it's going to go into Pascagoula there. And now you can see her being towed. I don't think she's underway under her own power. That little bit you saw there in the beginning would have been paying out line and then kind of getting her on position. She seems to be under tow, although I will say it is a fast tow. They're doing about 6-7 knots here under tow. It could be just an escort. I tend to think it's a tow going on here. And we'll see Crosby Star taking Ron H. Brown back up. They're not going back to Gulfport, which is interesting. They're heading to Pascagoula. So they're going to go head up here to Pascagoula. She's going to slow down a bit. We'll see her start to slow down as they make their approach in toward the port. A couple of things are going to have to happen here as they head into Pascagoula. Pilot's going to have to come on board, and they're going to have to grab probably some more tugs here as they come in. So they're going to take a little bit of a dog leg here, burn a little bit of time as they come in and start heading up into the channel here. See them running a little bit parallel. Here come the tugs out. So Signet Victory and Signet Challenger coming out to assist. They'll get on the sides of Ronald Brown, and they're going to go ahead and start heading in up the channel here. Make that entrance into Pascagoula. Probably have the pilot on board one of the tugs jumping on. Bit of a run into Pascagoula. I did it a long time ago. I've not been in Pascagoula in a long time, so I apologize. It's been a while. But they're going to come in here and go to the west side here of the basin and tie up. And you'll see them up there, up against the berth as they tie up. So not a lot of information that we know about the vessel at this moment. We're waiting to get some more from NOAA. The fire experienced on board the NOAA vessel Ronald Brown is similar to a vessel fire they had 2 years ago, almost at a day, back in September of 2023. This was on board the NOAA vessel Rainier. The incident took place on September 5th in the space above the engine room. At that time, they were transiting to Honolulu. They were about 200 miles off the island of Tutila in American Samoa. Pretty isolated area, not a lot around there. Crew battled the fire for almost 3 hours. Thankfully, the crew's training helped them to contain and extinguish the fire. More importantly, there were 41 people on board, and no one was injured. This sounds eerily similar to what has happened on board the Ronald Brown. It took them 18 hours working to get the mechanical and communication systems back up and running, but they were able to journey back to the port of Pago Pago. Once there on September 7th, it became clear that the vessel had suffered extensive damage. The vessel was eventually towed from Pago Pago to Honolulu, more than 2,500 miles, where the ship arrived on October 28th. So one of the things I do wonder is, why do we continue with separate crews on board all these different surveillance vessels? So here you have NOAA operating a fleet of vessels with their own crews. Yet Military Sealift Command operates a very similar fleet with survey and hydrographic vessels operating out around the world. Specifically, they run some ocean surveillance vessels, but more importantly, they have a fleet of 6 with a 7th on the way of oceanographic survey ships. Then there's the fleet of AGORs. These are research vessels owned by the Navy, but licensed and operated by institutions, for example, University of Washington, Scripps Institute, Woods Hole, all operate fleet of vessels that perform similar survey operations. These ships are contract operated. So here you have 3 different fleets. The Military Sealift Command with contract operated vessels using merchant mariners from the commercial fleet. You have the NOAA fleet which is using their own officers recruited into the NOAA Commissioned Officer Corps. And then you have the private institutions who are going out getting merchant mariners to work directly for the universities. It seems, again, what do I know, that this would be a good kind of compiling of resources together if we can get commonality of these fleets in crewing and operations of the vessels. But again, what do I know? So not a lot of information, I apologize, but from what I've seen and heard, the engine room suffered damage. There was definite heat damage in and around the engine room. Not sure what the cause was. We'll have to wait for NOAA. Any fire in an engine space is extremely dangerous. Obviously, you want to err on the side of caution. Fortunately, they were in a situation where they could take the plant offline. They could anchor. They still had auxiliary power on board, lights and fire pumps, so that they could fight the fire if necessary on board and provide life support and life systems for the ship. We'll keep you posted on information as it's released. This is Sal, signing off.